You're sitting in your own living room, the heating is running, and yet you're shivering? The bill is rising, but the warmth never feels like it's reaching you. Exactly at this point, Grandma would have just smiled quietly. She knew simple cold hacks that get by without expensive technology and work amazingly well. Today we'll go through 30 of these old, proven methods together for more warmth in the body, in the household, and when saving. If you like household hacks, like from Grandma, subscribe to the channel and we'll start with the warmth right at the body. The onion look, but properly. Grandma didn't rely on one thick, heavy layer, but on several light ones. At the very bottom, a soft cotton undershirt. Over it, a long-sleeved shirt. Then a sweater from wool or mixed fabric. Air layers form in between, and exactly this trapped air keeps the warmth at the body. That way, you stay evenly warm longer without getting cold again quickly as soon as you sit down. Don't forget the legs. Many put on thick on top and walk around below in thin pants. Grandma did it differently. Under the normal pants, she wore a thin pantyhose or leggings. Not tight, but comfortable like a second skin. The legs are large surfaces over which you lose warmth. If they're well packed, the whole body stays calmer tempered. You freeze less at hands and face because the body doesn't constantly try to compensate the cold legs. Warm feet as basis. Grandma always said, "Who has warm feet freezes half as much." She paid attention first that the feet are dry. Damp socks were changed immediately. Then wool socks came into play, real wool or a high wool content, because the material still warms even in lightly damp state. If the floor was particularly cold, she laid a thin insole or a piece of cardboard in the house slipper. This additional layer between foot and floor acts like a small insulation. Suddenly, even a simple house slipper feels noticeably warmer. Hot water bottle and grain pillows as quiet helpers. For Grandma, a hot water bottle belonged to winter like a scarf to the coat. She filled it not quite full, wrapped it in a thin cloth, and laid it at the lower back, on the belly, or to the feet. The even warmth calms the body. Grain pillows from cherry pits or grain came briefly into the oven or on the heating. They give off a gentle, dry warmth that fades slowly instead of disappearing abruptly. Targeted warm pulse points. Grandma knew that at wrists, neck, and in the knee bends, blood runs particularly close to the surface. If these spots are warm, the warmth spreads quickly in the whole body. A tight but soft scarf, cuffs at the wrists, or warm knee socks can make the difference whether you slightly shiver or feel comfortable. Warmth from inside. Instead of constantly turning at the heating, Grandma relied on warm drinks. Simple herbal teas, hot lemon, or a clear vegetable broth. Nothing special, but always really hot and drunk, sip by sip. The warmth spreads from inside out, the belly relaxes, and the entire cold feeling becomes milder. For her, a hot drink on a cold day was almost like a small domestic heating ritual. Movement as short warmth boost. When she noticed she was cooling down while sitting, she got up briefly, walked a few minutes through the room, shook out arms and legs, did a few simple stretching movements, not as sport, but as small, quiet warming phase. After a few minutes, the body was circulated again, the hands became warmer, and she could sit down calmly again. Use doors properly. In her apartment, warm rooms stayed closed. The living room where one stayed became the small warmth island. The door to the cold hallway or to the bedroom stayed closed, so the air exchange was limited. If someone had to go through, the door was opened quickly and closed again. That way, she prevented the laboriously built-up warmth from quietly distributing in the whole apartment and arriving everywhere, only lukewarm. Warm zones instead of everywhere equal. Grandma never heated every room equally strong. The area where she stayed a lot, armchair, table, favorite place, got special attention. A dense rug under the table, a folded blanket on the chair, an additional pillow in the back. In this corner, the temperature felt noticeably higher, although the thermostat wasn't turned up further. You create a cuddle zone instead of warming every square meter. Rugs against foot cold. Smooth floors like tiles or laminate act quickly cold even if the air temperature is right. Grandma laid runners in hallways, small rugs in front of the sofa, and gladly also a somewhat thicker rug in the seating corner. Even a simple patchwork rug deprives the feet of less warmth. The room feels immediately cozier because the cold from below is braked. Move furniture away from the heating. For her, it was clear. Nothing big stands in front of the radiator. A sofa directly in front, a wide armchair, or a chest of drawers swallow the warmth. She placed furniture with some distance so the warm air could rise freely and distribute in the room. She also didn't let heavy curtains fall over the radiator, but laid them sideways so no heat jams formed behind the fabric. Decouple exterior walls. On cold exterior walls, Grandma didn't place cabinets press against the wall. She left a few centimeters air in between. Behind it, the air could circulate lightly. The wall dried better and didn't feel so icy anymore. If a sofa had to stand at an exterior wall, she laid a folded blanket between backrest and wall or hung a wool blanket on hooks behind it. That way, the cold surface became a damped, friendly wall. Curtains as fabric insulation. During the day, she drew the curtains wide open so the sparse winter light could warm the room. Sun rays, even if weak, bring noticeable warmth. As soon as it got dusky, they closed the curtains again. Thicker fabrics, gladly, a bit wider and longer than the window, acted like an additional layer in front of the pane. Behind it remained a calm air layer that prevented the cold from radiating directly into the room. Use residual heat. After baking, Grandma opened the oven a crack if no children were nearby. The stored warmth streamed slowly into the kitchen. When she cooked with lid, she let the hot pot evaporate a moment open in the room before it wandered into the sink. After a warm bath, the bathroom door stayed open briefly, so part of the humid, warm air could pull into the hallway. Keep radiators free and care for. She wiped dust from the fins, so the warmth was given, unbraked into the air. Before the heating period, she had the radiators vented so no air cushions formed that diminished the performance. On top, she laid nothing heavy that could disturb the air circulation, at most a light blanket edge that didn't hang over the whole surface. Small textile hacks in the room. On leather sofas, she gladly laid a wool blanket in winter on which one could sit. Leather otherwise feels quickly cool. Wooden chairs got a seat cushion that caught the cold. At places where she stayed longer time, at the desk, at the sewing machine, always lay a blanket and if needed a small pillow ready. That way, the contact to the ground always remained pleasantly warm. Combine light and warmth. In the evening, Grandma rather relied on few targeted placed lamps with warm light than on glaring illumination. The warm light let the room appear cozier, and where it acts cozy, one perceives the same temperature often as more pleasant. A calm, warm corner light next to the armchair, plus a blanket and already the same room temperature acts completely different. Seal door gaps. Especially at apartment doors or doors to cold hallways, Grandma laid a rolled blanket directly in front of the lower gap. Later, she sewed from fabric remnants long, narrow rolls, filled them with old socks, fabric pieces, or sawdust, and pushed them close to the door. So simple, so effective. The cold airstream is braked. The floor in the room feels noticeably warmer. Two-zone entrance. Behind the apartment door always lay a robust mat, often from coconut or rubber. It took up moisture and cold of the shoes. Right behind it came a runner that led further into the apartment. The hardest cold stayed hanging in the entrance area that way, instead of unbraked wandering over tiles or laminate into the living space. Who came in stayed briefly on the mat, shoes off, and only then it went into the warm rooms. Seal window frames. Old windows can have small cracks through which wind whistles without you seeing it immediately. Grandma took painter's tape or self-adhesive sealing strips and stuck them along the leaky edges. Larger gaps she filled with narrow folded fabric strips or twisted newspaper. The paper swells a bit with moisture and snuggles well into the crack. In winter, when windows are rarely fully opened, that's a simple, reliable solution. Grandma's draft test. Before she sealed, she searched systematically for the culprits. She placed a small tea light near window frames, door gaps, or the roller shutter box and observed the flame. If it pulled itself clearly in one direction, she knew, here air streams. If she had no tea light just then, she moistened her finger lightly and ran slowly along edges. If she felt a cool pull, she marked the spot with a small piece of tape and sealed targeted there later. That way, the draft disappeared at the cause. Curtains as second barrier. Especially at cold windows, Grandma hung the curtains a bit wider and longer so they covered the sides of the frame too. Sometimes a second, lighter curtain came behind. Between glass and fabric arises a calm air layer that acts like a simple insulation. Important to her was that the fabric didn't stand wide open below. If the curtains hung only like two flags left and right, the cold crept in between, so she let them overlap a bit. Weak spots at mailbox slot and keyhole. Old apartment doors often have a mailbox slot through which wind and cold penetrate. Grandma clamped inside a folded piece of felt or a firm fabric that covered the slot almost completely but still let the mail through. At the keyhole sometimes hung a small cloth or a cover that she could push aside if needed. That way, she prevented cold air from pulling directly into the hallway. Calming roller shutter belts. At the spot where the belt comes out of the wall, it can draft noticeably. Grandma stuck there small brush seals in or laid cut felt pieces in the opening so the belt could still move, but no open gap remained. Already this small intervention took the edge. It's cold. Check sockets on exterior walls. In some old apartments, cold comes in through poorly sealed sockets on exterior walls. Grandma held her draft test there. If she felt something, she carefully unscrewed the cover and laid a piece of felt or foam behind the faceplate without touching the wires. Then the cover came tight back on. The wall acted immediately less drafty. Transitional zones in the hallway. For paths into the cellar or shortly in front of the door, hung in the hallway a thick transitional jacket that was only for such quick trips. The actual warm cardigan stayed in the living room. That way, she brought less cold back into the living area. Wet, cold shoes stayed on the mat, never in the middle of the warm room. Break floor, cold in the room, in corners where it drafted particularly at the floor, for example, next to balcony doors. Grandma laid additionally a small rug or a folded runner. Over it she placed a plant stand or a small shelf that wasn't open directly at the floor. The air movement became slower, and the cold lost its sharpness. Provisional inner windows. If a window cooled particularly strong, she crafted from transparent foil and painter's tape a kind of second pane on the frame. She stretched the foil tight over the entire surface and stuck the edges carefully. In between remained a thin air layer that acted like an additional buffer. The window felt from inside noticeably less cold. Textile corners against cold walls. In draft corners, she gladly placed a chair with thrown-over blanket or a high basket in front of the affected spot. That takes the cold the direct path into the room. Behind the piece of furniture, the air calms. In front, you sit more protected. Regular, short-burst venting instead of constant tilt. That, too, was a draft theme for her. Windows never stood for hours on tilt because the steady, small draft cooled walls, floors, and furniture out. She vented rather several times a day for a few minutes cross, all windows wide open, fresh air in, then close again. The air was clear, but the stored warmth remained in the walls. You now have 30 simple cold hacks from Grandma's time at hand. Warmer body, cleverly used rooms, and less draft, all without big effort, but with noticeable effect. Pick a hack that you implement directly today. For example, warm feet, a draft-free door, or a tight rug under your favorite place. Experience shows. Already a small change can let the whole room act different. If you like such everyday household helpers, subscribe now to the channel and activate the bell, so you don't miss any of the next episodes with Grandma's best hacks around the household, warmth, and saving.